Welcome back to the map video presentation. This is part 2, and we'll start off with the intersection that we've laid out here. Notice that the spans are yellow, and that is because if you double click them, we've selected a crossing type, street crossing, and a lot of times in the work I always do, you're required to get height clearances for your street crossings and water crossings. So there's a flag option, and that will happen automatically when you place the span and choose crossing, but you can deselect it if you want. And now it's no longer yellow, but it's just to flag you to remember to get those clearances later on. You can't, or it's not advisable to get the clearances at this stage because the poles are not populated with the attachments. The attachments carry the continuity between the poles. So like your comm and your secondary and your primary lines. Once those lines are in there, if you tap your span, let's go back over here and show you. See the different spans, Rogers, those are the top 3 are communications, followed by a street light cable and a neutral. You can populate clearances as this span has, and notice it's yellow, but once you've given it at least one clearance, it goes from yellow to green. So going back over here, let's pretend we've populated those things, and let's say we have a communication line going from pole 47 to pole 46, and you have 2 1-inch fiber optic cables on there, and you're required to gather the cables as often is. And say one of those cables veers and goes north to pole 44. Well, the continuity is now broken between pole 47 and 46. When you get into the pole 46, how are you going to remove one of the cables without it removing it from pole 47? Well, you have to place an intersection in order to do that, to break that continuity right here. And so I selected an int from the pull down menu, and you'll notice the snap settings. Choose it when it's an X for intersection, place. Ask you if you want to place it benignly, in other words just for visual, or divide the span. All of the elements within that span are now broken at that point. There are none populated. You can do this now at the beginning when you're laying out your objects, or you can do it after you've populated and you just want to make a single change. It's up to you. You'll notice that 2 of those spans stayed yellow and the other 2 went blue, because it's going to assume that the shorter span is not a street crossing, so it changed it to alongside. Now, sometimes in these surveys, you're also required to gather the clearances of commercial driveways, so you might have to change that alongside to a commercial driveway, as you would in this case. That's a commercial building. This one would probably stay alongside. There was no span measurement entered beforehand, or else it would have divided the span measurement appropriately. The yellow ones are still flagging you because later you'll want to put clearances in there. And that's that. The next item would be, let's place a note. A lot of times in your surveys you're going to want to place notes, and these will end up on your overview drafts and your KMZ output draft. The KMZ file is a file that Google can open. In fact, that is normally the default application that opens KMZs. So these notes will land there, and you can just say, all these poles are owned by such and such, or you might say, not sure about the neutral conductor size for this section. Anything you want, any kind of a note that you want to place there. And moving along, you'll notice that this span is slightly lighter than this span because it does not have the required figures populated. Now it's darker. So there's always a tool to show you if you've completed things. The next thing we'll do is we'll use the vector tools. Place vector. I use this to line up poles that are in a straight line. So I'll go to the last pole that I can tell is in a dead straight line, and I will snap to that base position, and now I can line up all of my downstream spans to that point along that vector based on my laser measurement or the imagery. Bang. And it gives you a perfect straight line. The other vector tool that you'll see there, which we used in the demo video, is a circle. You can use two circles from two different points to triangulate a third point to place poles exactly. For example, say you had a guy pole roughly somewhere around here, and you couldn't see it on the imagery, but you wanted it dead in its position as you're supposed to. So you could align these two circles to the correct laser distances that you shot. Let's say that was 59, and then move that pole, notice the X, to the intersecting point of the vector circles. Now you have your guy pole exactly where it's supposed to be. And you can populate this as a street crossing and a guy. Or if it was just an adjacent guy, in other words, it wasn't guying any angle that is pertinent to your survey, you could just choose adjacent, but let's pretend it is pertinent. And you can decheck that. Oh, we forgot the measurement. 18.5, we'll say. And then you can change the pole, even though this is covered in the pole, to a guy, and place your anchor. If there was a guy pole intersecting a straight line like that, it's probably because this line continues on this way in the same direction or the opposite direction. So there are some more features covered in this video, and that covers most of the map features. You can erase your vectors and your circles, and then there's quick access to GPS settings, which we'll go over in the settings videos. Oh, one more thing, the GPS. If you choose this icon, it automatically takes you to your position and follows that position so that you can place elements exactly as per GPS once your accuracy increases, of course. I'm indoors, so it will take a little longer. If you deselect the left GPS icon, it keeps the GPS on, but it does not center on the GPS. So placing your objects by GPS would have to be visual. And this comes in really handy when you are placing, which I didn't go over, an underground route. So you could, once you're outside and that accuracy gets down to 2 or 3 meters, you can actually use it as a breadcrumbs, keep the GPS on, see how it says placed by GPS, and as you move, once you pass 3 meters in distance, it will place a new point, or you can change that 3 meters in your settings to whatever you want. And you could drive for an hour and it would draw your route exactly as you went. And I think that covers everything. Thanks for your time.